Hey, I don't know if you noticed this, but I have more space now. Why? Because apparently you're supposed to be turning videos sideways. What up? How you doing? My name's Ashley, and I am currently waiting for Chris and for this thing to start playing so that we can get started. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ashley, what's up? How are you? How's your day going? How is your life going? The answer is, it's all good in the hood, Robin Hood. I don't like that. Doesn't sound right. It's all good in the hood, Robin Hood. That doesn't sound right. It's all good like you know it could be. It's all good like you know it should be. It's all good. That's the point. It's all good. Now I know what you're thinking. Why is it so quiet on your end, Ashley? Usually you're mad rambunctious. But I'm not exactly understanding this new live feature because it says like you're gonna go live in a minute. And am I there? Can you guys see me? I don't understand. I'm gonna refresh the page. That way I know when this starts. Okay, so it does say your broadcast will begin in a minute. What is the time frame? Like, what is the waiting period between that? You know? What is that? What is the time frame? Could that be why there's such a delay, it seems like? Because there's like a little entry level way? Regardless, I'm gonna go live. Invite. I'll invite him. Go live with. Alright. So now we wait. Now I wait. Where is Chris? Chris, get here. Get here, Chris. I need you. Okay. I'm waiting on you. Boom. Looking without typing. Look at me. What's this? Oh, I can write comments. Chris, you're there. Boom. Yeah. Let's do it. Oh, invite to broadcast. Not just tapping on the name. That's weird. Alright. Nice to see you. How are you, my friend? I think you're going to be here Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. I got to check my calendar because all the dates kind of run together on me usually. Um, yo!
I'm here.
What's up? You made it.
Yeah, of
Congratulations.
course. Now I just have to figure out how to get this thing to work without it just going all crazy on me.
You gotta be nice to it. That's what I've learned is how everything works. You have to be nice to things. So Chris, what's going on, man? It's what, like 3:30 where you are right now?
It's 4:30 right now, yeah.
4:30. You have so much more time left in the day than I do, man. You have like so much more time left. Where are you from?
Yeah, but you started your day way earlier than I did too.
You would think, right? You would think. So where are you from, man? Tell us about yourself. Tell me who you are, what you do, all the awesome things that you accomplish during the day. No?
Well, the connection is really kind of goofy right now, so I barely heard what you were saying.
Oh, I just said tell me who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
All right, well, I'm from Rapid City, South Dakota. In my alternate life, I set up houses. I fix plumbing, I fix drywall, all that kind of good stuff. And then in my super secret superhero life, I'm a full-time live stream producer and all that kind of good stuff. So
Super secret superhero life.
yeah, well, we all have to have something to kind of grab onto.
So your superpower is producing live streams. How does that save the? Tell me how podcasting saves the world. This is a great thing. I need to know about this.
Okay, so here's how that super secret superhero thing works out. Everybody has a voice, everybody has a story, and sometimes those stories are powerful enough for someone to say, hey, me too. And when they can be inspired and motivated to take action and change something about their life because they see the struggles that other people have already gone through, that's how it helps save the world.
Whoa. You just blew my mind. Because I just do podcasting because, I'm a vain creature who thinks the world deserves to see my face. But I've never thought about it that way, giving people a voice. And so you tell which podcasts are you? I feel like you have like a bunch of shows that you do because I know you do stuff with like me and Dave, and then you have Grit and Grace. So tell us about a couple of those things.
Oh man, I've done so many different shows over the years. It's I started off in 2003 doing an audio blog for the South Dakota National Guard, just reading the general's notes and putting it on the website for the South Dakota National Guard soldiers. And then from there, it kind of went on into video production, things like that. So since 2003, well, actually since about 2002, I've been working in broadcasting and things like that. So I figured by now it all kind of culminated into one little thing called live streaming, and now I take all those little skills and put them together and create shows. Some of the shows I've done were Average to Awesome, 15 or 30, what was it, 60 Seconds on Blab was a game show that I played around with for a little while. That was a lot of fun in the Blab days. Alfredo Tagallo, he's one of the people that I met over on Blab. So, hey, welcome to the show, Alfredo. It's nice to see you, brother. And, you know, Raw and Real has kind of been my brand. That was kind of my breakout brand, but got people to really kind of notice who I was. And it was one of those. It's one of those things where I continue to create. Working with Lynn Burnett on Grit and Grace TV, Tech News Nightly with Ray Rideout. Let me see, where else have I got? I mean, there's been a lot of opportunities, and then a lot of guest, just guest hosting stuff that I just got to play around with.
Nice, dude. That's awesome. I've seen a couple of your shows. I've seen a couple of lives that you do, and they're fantastic. So where does this motivation come from to continually build? And how do you keep up with that whole entire thing? Seriously, how do you do it?
I I think I'm just a ADHD creative, meaning that as soon as I start creating one thing, I have to jump in and start creating something else because I always get these ideas. Like for example, the other day I was sitting there doing drywall in a house, and all of a sudden I had this weird idea to jump in and do a bikers and brews show, where basically I get around, I sit around with my biker buddies, and we drink beer and we just talk about the industry, talk about motorcycling and the stuff that we love to do. And that was kind of one of those brainstorm ideas. Another show that I'm working out with a local community theater improv group is a
Ooh.
strict audio only, and we're going to be revisiting those 1930s and 40s audio dramas, and we're going to just rock it out that way. So it's just one of those things where once your mind starts rolling and starts thinking of ideas, it's hard to turn it off, and that's kind of what's happened with me. I just love doing what I do.
Do you have a calendar or anything? How do you even know what day it is? Because I know your super secret superpower superhero job requires a lot. I have one show and it takes effort, and my show's live too. But how the hell do you know what's going on half the time? See, like, how the hell do you do that?
Notebooks. I write so much stuff down. I've got different notebooks for different shows. So if I come up with a different idea, I go buy a brand new notebook, and that's its own thing. So um, I guess I'd have to turn it all around. But this thing over here that looks like a toolbox,
That is a
at the
tool.
bottom of it actually has all my shows on it, or actually all my notebooks in it. And since we just moved into this new house, I don't have everything unpacked yet. And then, of course, the computer. I mean, I'm kind of computer stupid when it comes to anything other than broadcasting. So if you ask me how to, open up a Word document, I would be like, I don't know. You're going to have to ask Lynn how to do that. She is the genius when it comes to all that kind of stuff.
She's the Grace in Grit and Grace, I imagine. Are
Well,
you in a
that's.
Are you in a shed? Are you in a shed?
Am I what?
Are you in a shed? Are you in a shed?
Yeah, this is my studio. This is the new Saloon 7 Studios. It is a 8x8 shed. Nothing special. I just kind of do my thing and have a good time doing it. This is the studio setup right here. I've got the beer cans over there because you got to have beer in your studio. The computer where everything is kind of going on right there, and then of course the audio mixer and the lights and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, I've got the 8x8. That's all I need to get done what I'm doing. And right there in the background, you can actually see I'm running a network test for a new network that I'm developing with another guy out of New York. So we're actually running a 4-hour network test right now to see if the computer and everything else holds up to the stress that it's going to cause.
What kind of bandwidth are you working with, dude? Like, this can't just be your average, like, Comcast $60 special you got going on over there. You doing like straight up fiber through everything. Everything's like hunkered down with big wires and shit. How are you even managing that kind of operation?
We don't have cable, so all the cable and stuff like that is gone. But I do have internet, and I use the fastest possible internet that I can afford, which everybody's got this idea that when they go out and they get internet and cable and they get that all bundled packaged together, it's all really nice and neat, this, that, and the other. But the thing they don't understand is there's actually a step up from that yet, and that's usually the network, the internet that a lot of businesses use, a lot of big businesses use. So by eliminating cable and all that other garbage, I'm able to put that money into just running this higher speed internet, if you will.
I'd like to take a time out there and just remind you that cable is not garbage, people. Cable is fantastic. Without cable, you can't watch This Is Us every week, which is awesome. And that kind of brings me to my next thing. When it comes to like media, what is your, obviously live streaming is like your favorite thing, and I see you all the time, and I try and catch you every time. But like before you lived in an age before all of this stuff. So what got you into this? Like, because I know back in your day, I'm sure it wasn't Facebook live stream. You know what I mean? I'm sure it was like tapes, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, you say back in my day. I'm not that old. Come on. Jeez, you make me sound like I'm like from the 1920s and 30s. Anyways, um, what got me into it is it was completely by accident. I needed a part-time job, and there was a local television station that was looking for an overnight control deck operator. Basically, what would happen is, those overnight shows, and this was all analog still, of course, so we would literally have to punch out of the show and into the commercials set. So you would hit the ready and then the take button, and then it would shoot you over into commercial. So there was actually somebody controlling that stuff back when you were probably a little girl. So that's how I kind of got started into the whole broadcasting thing. And then from there, I kind of moved into working for the nightly news, doing tape operator, where we had to put the tape in for each individual segment. And from there, I moved up until I was finally directing the news show, and that was a lot of fun. But I always thought it would be cool to be like on the other side of the camera. I wanted to, be the one delivering the news. So during one of the it was during one of the state elections for governor, and I was working I was working on a mobile set where Helene Duhamel, who was the anchor of our station, she was doing giving the questions and stuff during the debate and all that kind of good stuff. And I thought, wow, politics is just the coolest thing in the world. And hold on, I was still young at this time. I didn't know any better. So I was like, politics is the coolest thing in the world. So from there, I went to producer, the station director, and I said, hey, it would be cool to do like, a radio show or a TV show on the weekend,
Right.
because I knew we had some time open on both the radio side and the TV side. So it would be really cool to do just a segment. Hey, what do the young people think? Because at this time I'm like 22 years old. I was like that millennial type. This like so
Yeah.
this is this is 20 years ago now, folks. 20 years ago. So so I talked to him and he goes, well, I can't put you on television, but I'll put you on the radio. So that's what got me started broadcasting, is getting on the radio and
Right
talking
on.
about what people think. And I would go out, and that's what started me doing my street interviews, which I do every now and then on my shows. I'll go out and do a street interview of, hey, what do you think of politics, or what do you think of the governor? And it was all state and local government at that time. It was no national government stuff that I was talking about, but that's where the start. That's how I got started.
It sounds pretty similar to like me because I worked in radio a couple years ago, and I'm sure if I don't know if you've been to a radio station recently, but it's completely different from what it was 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's all digital.
It's all digital, man, and it's fun, and I love radio, and I love being on either side of the control room. You know what I mean? I love being in the studio, I love being in the control room, but to think like I couldn't imagine someone being like, "Hey, can I be on TV?" You know what? No, I'm gonna put you on radio though, buddy. Like,
It's crazy, but that's it. I mean, I live in a small town. I mean, there's only at that time there's only about 40,000 people here, so it wasn't like it was. I mean, and got to remember the station that I was working for at that time was owned by one single family. And if you got along good with the family, you kind of got along with, you got whatever you wanted. So me being who I was, I made really good friends with Helene Duhamel because it was Duhamel Broadcasting, and her dad owned the station, and they ran four different radio stations and two television stations. And so it was really easy for them to, or for me to find a little spot, where I could fit in somewhere. And
should have married
that's
one of those
it.
ladies. That's what you should have did. Um, but what was I gonna say? South Dakota. I can't even believe I'm not talking about South. What the hell is there to do in South Dakota? Like South Dakota. I'm from South Florida, which is like a popular place. South Dakota is like a myth to most of us. So, what is South Dakota? Tell me about South Dakota.
Well, usually what we do is we'll like hook up the buggy and we'll go into town. Every now and then we have to bring the shovel to shovel the horse manure. But
Are you
for
joking?
the most part, it's just like what everybody thinks it is. We just kind of go out about our business, and yeah, it just takes us a little bit long. No, I'm just kidding. We don't
Oh,
actually have,
it's like there's like horse shit just laying
we don't
around.
use horse and buggy. No, no, South Dakota is a huge tourist location. To be honest with you, that's our major industry is tourism. We've got the Mount Rushmore, the faces, the four presidential
Yeah,
faces in the rock. I know, right? You walk up, do. Oh, hey, look, there's faces on the rock. Okay, let's go. Anyways,
yeah.
that's pretty much Mount Rushmore. And then, we've got a lot of prehistoric history here with mammoth sites, a lot of dinosaurs, the dinosaur bones and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of tourism. Every third business is a hotel or a restaurant. It's just kind of how it goes here.
That sounds
And
wrong.
then of course,
I can imagine going to South Dakota. Just the idea of like a vacation, and I just can't imagine it. You know what I mean? Because we always joke about South Dakota. Like if somebody lives super far, you're like they live all the way in South Dakota. You know what I mean? Or you'll say something like, "Oh boy, that's as fun as going to South Dakota." But apparently there's shit to do there, man. Apparently there's shit to do there. So maybe I'll have to venture out. Maybe I'll have to venture to South Dakota.
yeah, well, they also have the world's largest motorcycle rally. I don't care what anybody in
Sturgis?
Florida thinks. Yeah, the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally is literally 28 miles down the road from where I live.
I think Daytona takes Sturgis to
No,
task.
no. See, it takes two Daytona rallies to equal one Sturgis rally. So I will argue that fact until the day I die.
Yes.
And I've been to both of them, so I know.
Yes, but Daytona, there's like beaches and like beaches, dude, and oceans and waters. What? I mean, Sturgis just
uh,
seems like
I'll
you're
give you that.
landlocked.
I'll give
Where's
you all that. That's cool.
yeah, beaches always win. And so, so are you from this? Did you grow up in the same city your whole entire life, like born and raised
No.
in? Where are you from?
No, I'm from Minnesota. I was raised in Texas and I live here in South Dakota.
How the hell do you end up in South Dakota? Like, I just have to. I can't imagine saying, "Hey guys, pack your shit, South Dakota, here we come." Like, how do you? Was it a job thing?
No, my wife's family is from here, so that's one thing. I met her in college. So it was like, hey, when you get married, and the first thing that I was told was, oh, well, we got to live close to my mom and dad. So we moved close to her mom and dad. And then I worked up in North Dakota in the oil rigs for a little bit. So Danielle, yeah, that's North Dakota that has the
Fracking.
fracking oil and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I worked up in North Dakota for a little while. And then when I was done up there in North Dakota, we decided to stay here in South Dakota.
Ooh, nice. I mean, I just like I said, probably I have to visit. Is it true there's a lot of Native American things going on up there? You guys
Oh,
have a
absolutely.
lot of them.
Well,
Do you guys?
this area here is like the heart of the Sioux Nation. So you still have the reservations and stuff like that, which unfortunately are they're run worse than a third world country is. The government gives them absolutely no help whatsoever. Now you see reservations in Florida, you see them in Oklahoma, you see them in New Mexico, you see them all over the world. I mean, even in New York, you'll see them. The difference between the Sioux reservation and all these other reservations is the fact that the Sioux never really capitulated over to the American government's way of thinking. So because of that, there's still a lot of hard feelings between the Native Americans here in South Dakota and the government. Not only that, but there's a lot of problems with the Native American population here in South Dakota and just the general population here in South Dakota. They don't always seem to, see eye to eye. Now, there's a lot being done to change that. There's a lot of people that have some amazing programs, to help them out and not to give them a handout, but to give them a hand in stepping out. And that's really important, I think, with what we're doing here in South Dakota as far as helping people just, live the lives that they want to live, really.
All right. Have you ever had a Native American on your show by any chance? Like, have you ever done a Grit and Grace or any other of your millions of shows where you're like, we got to talk about this issue? Is it that serious to where you have to bring, you know what I mean? If that's making sense.
You know, no, um, I can't say that I have. It hasn't been because, we want to talk an issue. It hasn't been because anything else. Um, Half of my family, I mean, literally half of my family, my half brother and his wife are Native American. So they're in my family. That's part of my blood. So it's not something that it's like an issue with my family. It's for us, it's just part of life. The Native American culture, the white culture, whatever. It's just part of our life. That's how we grew up. There was no such thing as, hey, you're a Native American in my family. It was
Oh,
just
just family.
that's my brother. That's whatever.
No.
So I never understood that concept until I moved out here to Rapid City. Rapid City, they made more of a deal out of it than what they did where we grew up. And we grew up, like I said, in Minnesota and Texas. So it wasn't, in those areas, it was like no big deal. Um, Now, I don't, I don't really on my show Raw and Real, even though it's called Raw and Real, I never really touched on politics and things like that because that's not what it was about. I wanted people to come on the show to tell their story so other people could be inspired and motivated or change their mind or whatever. It was never a platform for someone to point their fingers. I mean, like you would never hear about gun rights on Raw and Real, because to me that is an issue that's way above what I want to get into. I want to get down to the grassroots. I want to get into people talking to people, not people bitching about politics and government, this and that and whatever. It's, because we're not going to change anything at that top level, but we can change it at the grassroots level, by you and me loving each other and just being people. That is how we're going to change everything. So that's what Raw and Real was all about.
It's awesome. Raw and Real seems like it needs to be syndicated on national TV. I'm not gonna lie to you because that's pretty much what we all try and do when it really comes down to podcasting. It seems like at least the people in our little tiny community, it seems like we're just trying to keep everyone, from the most vulgar person in the world like Drew, to someone as nice as Lynn. It just seems like we're trying to bring this other side to humanity that has apparently disappeared. So I'm glad you touched on that because it is like super important. And I know every show that I've watched in the podcasting communities on Facebook, there's that similar element of obviously some shows are very political, and those I can talk about later. But the shows that I love to watch are the shows where people are just highlighting how important other people are, and I think that's something you capture perfectly, man, when you do your shows.
Well, it's just that's just
Your mic's going out.
thinking of my down to like 4% on my battery too. I know it's crazy, but see, anyways, yeah, we just got to get down here at the bottom level. We got to talk to each other, and we got to do it in a way where it's not like I've got a preconceived notion about how you are because of who you are, and or you got a preconceived notion about who I am based on who I am, or based on what you think. We got to be just open, honest, loving communication. You got to be able to change your opinion. The thing that I always see is when people start fighting about their opinion, it's because their opinion without arguing. And that's not what we need to do. We need to be open to change. We need to be open-minded enough to let people add new information or educate us on things so we can change that opinion if it's needed.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, especially with the idea that and this is so true for almost every argument in the entire world. We have literally eliminated the possibility of using facts these days. I've seen arguments that just go, if I'm talking to someone having a civil conversation and they start with, well, I think this, and it's irrational, and you say, well, that's an irrational thought because realistically this is how life is, then they start calling you all kinds of names, and that's when things get real weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I always like this when somebody starts something like, well, here's what I think. I'm like, yeah, I'll listen to it. And I'll be like, well, that's an interesting perception.
Good.
Just leave it at that. And just let them continue with that perception. Now, if they ask me, so what do you think? Okay, let's get into it, but, but then I hope they give me the same courtesy, saying, wow, well, that's an interesting perspective.
It is, and it always is to hear from you because you have some pretty radical, well, not even radical, but you have some well thought out points, and some things we obviously agree on, but nobody agrees 100% on everything. And I think one of the best reasons that some people communicate better with others is because we understand that you can still be friends with somebody that you don't agree with. You can even have the full out conversation, and neither of you are going to change your mind, but you understand the purpose of civil discourse. You know what I mean? Like it's a simple conversation. It's not an argument. It's two people just dulling out facts, and facts can be interpreted, unfortunately. And I don't know how our brains do that, but they do. You know?
I love it when there's people who challenge my way of thinking. If you say something to me that challenges my perception of something, I love that. And even if we don't come to an agreement, at least you said something or you were able to give state your point in a way that's going to make me sit back and really think carefully before I open my mouth. And I just died.
No, no. Chris just died. Chris is dead right there. That's what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when you don't prepare. Because that's what happens. Now, if Chris, who I'm sure is, I'm going to leave, I like that man. Let me get him up. All right, his phone just crashed. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to work to get him back on for the last 15 minutes. Damn. Yes, but podcasting is something that Chris is nothing short of a professional at, and hopefully we can get him back on. And I'm really hoping that it works and we just restart from where we left off, because we only do have about 15 minutes left, and I want everyone to understand how important podcasting is to all of us and how much it means. And Chris is one of the people. Chris and Blaine both are two of the people who I would say are podcast masters, and they really embody what we all try and do when we bring shows, when we bring audio, when we bring TV, when we bring all this stuff. That is what entertainers are meant to do. We aren't just meant to make you laugh. We're meant to literally just that's what happens when you have porn playing in the background. Well, Chris, are you kidding me? No. But I think, like I said, I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't understand is we're not just here to entertain you. We're not here to, make you laugh. That's one of the things we do. But we're also here to challenge your thoughts. We're also here to, widen your horizons and make your mind smarter and make your brain bigger. And that's what we try and do. And the fact that Chris is, I think he accurately hit the nail on the head when he was talking about, God, I was listening too, and I had the thought in my head. Then I read his message, and I totally just spaced out. Oh, he hit the nail on the head when we were talking about just creative ADD, because that's exactly what we all have, creative ADD. And anyone who creates can tell you the same exact thing. I get an idea, I write it down, I start it. I get an idea, I write it down, I start it. And that's how things like this evolve. Who's This evolved from a short TV show, or not even a short TV show. Who's This evolved from one little segment in broadcasting school. Camp Ashley evolved from one really tiny idea that just really needed to happen. And that's something, as a creative person, that we have to deal with every day. And I know it's like, oh my God, life must suck. You have so many ideas. That's terrible. It really is, believe it or not, sometimes, because you want to bring your best to everybody, but it's hard to when you have so many ideas. So having Chris here today really gave you a good insight into a professional podcasting mind. And if you are considering starting a podcast, I would suggest there's places, there's resources, there's all this stuff. I'm sure he's always looking for a guest. So if you're an interesting person, which I'm sure you are, you can find him on Green Grace TV. I'm not sure how they do their process, but I'm sure you can be a part of it. What else? Really wasn't expecting this phone to cut off, but it's all good, because I've been watching American Horror Story season 5 again, because I actually enjoy American Horror Story Hotel. I totally forgot what season 4 was. Let's see, it was Murder House, Asylum, Coven, Freak Show. Not a fan. It was pretty dumb. But I am getting off now because Chris ruined my show. No, I'm joking. I would never hold that against him, dude. Up Wednesday, like I said, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, let me check my calendar. I always have to check my calendar before I speak, because sometimes I speak wrong. But I believe Blaine's coming on after Chris, and that's kind of how I wanted it to be. So hopefully that's how it is. If not, I'll tell you who it is, and you will see all their logos. I run everything the day before and the day of, and you'll see it. Log in with Google. Thanks. So drum roll, please. You would think I'd have this memorized. And I did, actually, for a while, but then I fell asleep. Ooh, it is. It's Blaine coming up on Wednesday. Appalachian Pie. So we're going to check in with our local Midwestern liaison on Wednesday. The following Monday, we have Summer coming on, and then we have Tracy from the Journey there. And that will end. Oh, and ending October, we have Cole Johnson and Gina Espin. Actually, ending October, we have Amy Bernier. But November is still open, so if you. No, December's open. Remember to interact and chat with the audience. Oh yeah. I saw everybody's comments and everything. It just, I wanted Chris to say. Chris has so much insight and so many things to go for that I wanted it to I wanted to make the most out of it possible with Chris, especially because Chris always has technology issues. Every single show he does, there's always some sort of technical problem, and it cracks me up because he really is. He's a titan of industry when it comes to this kind of stuff. When it comes to talking and presenting your ideas, but he just can't seem to get that damn technology working. So, like I said, I have December open, and I have a special birthday one. That's gonna be my birthday. It's just gonna be me and my friends, getting righteously awesome. So, what time is it? Ooh, I'm good. I'm good. All right, guys. Well, I will check in with you Wednesday. But for now, that's Chris, and this is Who's This? That rhymes. Let me end on a good note.